Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. Today I have some 9.8s that are rising in value, but they're not Marvel or DC comic books. So yeah, this should be a really interesting list to go through. So first one up, it's a Terminator #1, published by Now Comics. This one's a pretty solid one in the 9.8 if you're a big Terminator fan. Certainly I want this one. I've kind of recommended this one, 4 to 6 months ago on a few videos. Just realizing that it's a great one to want as a big Terminator fan. 36 9.8s in the blue label, a 1 of 36 in the universal grade blue label. So when I sort of recommended those videos 4 to 6 months ago, I wasn't able to track down a 9.8 myself for kind of a fair value. So I ended up getting a raw copy in this one in a newsstand edition too. Yeah, it's looking pretty fresh as well. Hopefully it's a 9.8 candidate, but a 1 of 36. If you can get one of these in the 9.8, sounding awesome as a big Terminator fan. 25.5%, the 9.8 percentage, which is decent. No, not something worth paying up extremely for or something like that, but a solid 9.8 ratio. And this one is like the first appearance of Terminator in comic books, so it's kind of the one to want if you're a big Terminator fan. So I saw one of these sell 9.8 white pages in a direct edition for $316. This was in an auction on eBay maybe 2 to 3 months ago. There hadn't been very many completed listings on eBay in the last few months, to be honest. And I mentioned, like in the title, these ones are rising in value. This was one, even when the virus market really heated up, this was still one you can get for kind of $125 to $150. It was so under the radar back then in a 9.8. But I think quite a few Terminator fans kind of coming out of the woodwork and wanting this one. And hopefully just more will get graded, and maybe as more get graded, it'll kind of tick down in price. I think kind of $250 to a little over $300 is a pretty solid value if it's just looking awesome. Kind of new case 9.8 white pages for a Terminator one. Now Comics, a 1 of 36. Yeah, just a pretty phenomenal collector item. Next one's a Super Mario Brothers #1. This one's published by Valiant comic books. Definitely this is the one you want if you're a big Mario Brothers fan. It's a phenomenal collector item. This is just a great high-grade comic book. Valiant comic, definitely going to be probably way lower printed than like a Marvel or DC comic book of the period, and the census shows it absolutely. 23 9.8s in the blue label, a 1 of 23, and 9% is the 9.8 ratio. So of all graded copies, only 9% of them are 9.8s. This is a super tough 9.8 for an early 1990s comic, and yeah, kind of absolutely the one to want if you're a Mario Brothers fan. And, there's only 23 out there in the blue label 9.8. I did see a CBCS 9.8 recently sell for this one. This is a single-digit or 9.8 ratio, so get ready for this one. $2,795.95 it sold for. US dollars, all the prices. So, the CGC 9.8's got to be, getting over $3,000 probably for this. Yeah, really tough one, but absolutely the one to want. Super Mario Brothers #1 from 1990. Maybe one to consider in the raw. This one's so expensive, but yeah, absolutely if you're the biggest Mario Brothers fan, that's one to go after. All right, next one's Star Wars Heir to the Empire #1. Yeah, we've recommended this one recently quite often. 269 9.8s in the Universal Blue Label. This one's first appearance of Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is definitely kind of the heir to the Empire. Yeah, he's kind of the new Darth Vader, sort of. It's a first appearance of Mirage as well, who's Luke Skywalker's mother, I believe. 17.6%, the 9.8 ratio. So just, yeah, super solid, like investment grade 9.8 ratio for a 1990s book. Yeah, not a single digiter, but still really solid for a 1990s 9.8. Recent sale on this one, $1,600. You go back about a month or two, a few had sold in the sort of $1,200 range. So I think that's kind of the range of prices on this one. And, Thrawn, his name was mentioned in the Mandalorian series, I believe it is, and I think there's a good chance that Thrawn's just in a ton of Star Wars content in like the next 5 or 10 years. Maybe he's kind of like the Thanos of the Star Wars movies moving forward here. So if that happens, I think this one's got a bright future, and you probably want to get in there in the 9.8. Hopefully around lower than 1,500 would be a good price target to aim for. And I thought on this one too of recommending Ken and the Last Padawan #6. Looks like Sabine Wren's going to be in that Ahsoka Tano show. So I think there's probably a little bit more upside for that one, especially if Wren is looking really awesome on the big screen. Or Ezra Bridger. I'm not sure if both of them are going to be in that one or not. But Canon 6 is one to consider as well. This is one I'm on the record as really wanting. A Jurassic Park #1. in a 9.8. And I know that like Jurassic Park movie is coming. I know my little nephews are really excited about the Jurassic Park movie. So to be honest, I'm not sure if like now is going to be the best time to buy Jurassic Park #1 because there's a bit of a hype for the movie. Then the movie comes out. There's going to be, you know, a good amount of hype, or the trailer during that period, whenever that happens. And 6 months to a year after this movie has kind of played its course, maybe you can get a better deal on a Jurassic Park #1. It's absolutely one-to-one. A similar story to where like I just couldn't find one for a fair value in the 9.8. There's a 44 9.8s in the blue label. 27.7% is the 9.8 ratio. I actually picked up a second print in a raw copy. It was just like kind of the best looking Jurassic Park #1 in Canada in the raw. And yeah, second print. It's still in the poly bag. Yeah, it looks pretty much you know, a 9.8 candidate for sure. So had to kind of go the raw route, but I am still on the lookout for one of those 44 in the blue label. And you know, I'm going to be patient on this one though. With that movie, I do feel that if this one kind of popped up on an auction, it would go for like, you know, $350 or something like that. And I'm sort of wanting to pay like $250 maybe, you know. Yeah, Jurassic Park #1 in a 9.8. Actually not seeing too many recent sales. I think 250 to kind of 350 is sort of the range of prices on that one right now. There's only 44 out there, but it's absolutely one-to-one. You might want to be a little patient to get a better deal after this Jurassic Park movie, though. Okay, next one is a Simpsons Comics and Stories #1 in a 9.8. This is one that just kind of over the past year I became aware of, and its first appearance is Simpsons in comics. And I'm sort of surprised, like the Simpsons Comics #1 really kind of seems to be very heavily collected by Simpsons fans, but you know, that's not the first appearance. This one is the first appearance, and it's like kind of a Batman like cover. So I absolutely, yeah, like I would definitely choose this one over Simpsons Comics #1, even though Simpsons Comics #1 is a lot easier to find. But this one is just fantastic, especially if you're a Simpsons fan. It's one-to-one. 94 9.8s in the Universal Blue label. So interesting, my first video I did on this one, which was probably about 4 months ago, there were 56 9.8s. Now there's 94. So a lot of people kind of getting this graded in the last little bit, and I think that's great. Hopefully those kind of flood the market over the next year, and you can get this one for a fair price, because it is pretty phenomenal. 14.3% is the 9.8 ratio. Decent 9.8 ratio. This one a 1990s book as well. Yeah, you love to see kind of a low teens 9.8 ratio on a book like this. So recent prices, $456 in an auction. Saw one sell for $500 as well. I think there was someone on the team too. Wasn't able to kind of confirm this, but I think they said they got it a little under $400 in CGC 9.8 white pages. I think that that's a phenomenal deal if you can get this one under $400. I'd even pay up to $500 if it was just looking awesome in a 9.8 white pages for first appearance of Simpsons on Simpsons Comics and Stories #1. Yeah, that one's trending up really well in price. All these are kind of slowly and steadily trending up. Kind of behind the scenes though. Yeah, these ones not so obvious for sure. Oh, okay, next one is a Witchblade #10. Actually, this one is probably the one that's not really trending up, but it's so kind of underfollowed, and one that's a bit nostalgic for me with growing up in the 90s. I really like the darkness, to be honest. And Witchblade #10 is first appearance of Jackie Estacado, who is, I think that's how you say his name, who is the darkness. And it's a pretty cool one, I think, albeit really under the radar right now, but definitely if you are a darkness fan, this is kind of the one to get. Witchblade #10, 95 9.8s in the blue label, a 1 in 95, 46.1% the 9.8 ratio. And I saw one sell for $99 just recently. I think I saw these go kind of 100 to 150 in the last year or so, like that, or about. The other one you want to consider for this one is the Darkness #0 variant for Witchblade #10. I think this one's trending up a lot better. This was one I'm admittedly kind of hitting myself. It was like a year and a half ago, a 9.8 popped up. It was like $120 of this Darkness 0 variant. There's 88 9.8s in the blue label. 37.4% is the 9.8 ratio for the Darkness #0 variant. I didn't end up buying it. And now, maybe if you got super lucky, you might be able to get this one for kind of $150. But I think there's one online right now signed, and it's like $400. And usually you see these pop up, they're kind of $300 area. So if you're the biggest Darkness fan, that Darkness #0 variant of Witchblade #10 could be one to consider as well. Yeah, but yeah, you might want to think about those if you grew up in the 90s like me and got a little nostalgia for darkness. Okay, next one is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. In the 4th printing we'll focus on, which is kind of the easiest one to find in a 9.8, but definitely the 5th printing you can find in a 9.8. And if your budget's kind of up there, the 3rd printing in a 9.8 is pretty phenomenal as well. And, you know, this is kind of one where maybe you want to go in the 1st or 2nd print, and obviously not a 9.8. It's a great one to invest in. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. First appearance of the Turtles and Shredder. 78 9.8s in this 4th printing. 13.8% is the 9.8 ratio, so decent 9.8 ratio, a 1 of 78. And recent sale I saw go in an auction for $710. I think that's like a screaming deal. I noticed on this one, it was in Canada, an auction in Canada on eBay, and I was thinking of bidding because I don't have this one. It is one I want, but there was a little something messy. It looked like something was just wrong with the cover where it was kind of a bit folded. To me, it didn't look like a 9.8 at all based on that. A bit of a weird looking fold on the cover. 710 I think is a screaming deal. I'd be willing to get up there to kind of, you know, over 800, let's just call it, I think is a price target to aim for. A little over 800 on a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 in a 4th print in a 9.8. That's a Mirage publication from the 80s. Next one's Predator #1. Yeah, Dark Horse comic. Predator #1 is a solid one. That's definitely trending up in price as well. And I kind of want this one, just being kind of a big Arnold fan. Like these Predator and Terminator comics are really wantable for me. 331 9.8s in the blue label. I want a 331. 20% the 9.8 ratio. This is absolutely one that's rising in value. It was like I've wanted this one for a while. It was kind of around $300 for you know, a good long while. And then there were those rumors that Marvel sort of bought back the rights for Predator and Alien, and this one kind of went from 300 to, you know, the 600 to 700, and it's really stuck around that 600 to 700 level. And yeah, it's a Dark Horse comic, so it's going to be a little bit less printed. I do think it's a really solid collector item in the 9.8 given the price. So $810. I saw one recently sell in an auction. Sometimes you get this one a little lower than 800, but if it's this one actually like looked really good in the pictures, like the spine just looking super crisp. A really nice 9.8. I think actually it's worth a little over $800 if it's just looking fantastic in a new case 9.8. And, you know, consider Aliens #1 as well. That's a little bit tougher to find, but these Predator #1 and Aliens #1 books are, you know, ones to consider right now with the MCU. There'll probably be some decent content, hopefully in the MCU with Predator and Aliens moving forward. Okay, next one. Definitely recommended this one quite a bit recently. It's a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers #1, Hamilton Comics publication. This one, Power Rangers, I think a really big brand. There's still a big cult of following for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, so I think this is kind of the first Power Rangers comic book. I think it's worth it at you know, kind of current prices right now. 273 9.8s in a blue label, 42.9%. The 9.8 ratio. Recent prices in a 9.8, $290.24. $299. Another one sold for. This one a little bit on the cool down. They had sold right around $400, I would say. Let's call it kind of 6 to 12 months ago. The market was a little bit hotter at that time. And you know, from that point I saw a few go for kind of $350, and now, you know, getting a little under in an auction. That $290.24 I think is an absolute price target to aim for. This is kind of one I want to, being a bit of a mild, you know, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan. I definitely like watch the cartoons growing up and all that so much, but you know, I'm not one to like follow them to the cons now and get all their signatures, and I'm not that big of a fan, but I think right under $300 for the first Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic is a pretty solid value for 9.8 books. Okay, and the last one, kind of maybe the most obvious one, is Spawn #1 in a newsstand edition. An Image comic, first appearance of Spawn in the more rare newsstand edition. There's you know, I think it was like 1.8 million Spawn #1s printed or something like that. So I always just make a point of it to recommend the newsstand edition for Spawn #1. Pretty great 9.8, I think, if you're a huge Spawn fan. I got one of these and kind of on the record as wanting another one, hopefully before they make a movie and the prices get pretty ridiculous on this one, is kind of my feeling that could happen, but who knows when that Spawn movie is going to come, to be honest. There's 8,439 9.8s though. That's the newsstand and the directs all clumped in. So there's probably about, you know, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 newsstands in the 9.8. Unfortunately, they don't kind of separate it on the census. 49.5% is the 9.8 percentage, And recent sales for Spawn number 1 newsstand edition, 9.8 white pages, $900, $899, and $960. I think right around that $900. This one's a really solid first appearance. It's got a big cult of following, Spawn, and hopefully they just make that movie, and there'll probably be another leg for this one. But even not, it's just an absolute one-to-one. I think right around $900 in the newsstand edition 9.8. It's making a lot of sense. All right, team. So definitely kind of cool to just get a bunch of great 9.8s that are not Marvel and DC books. And yeah, a few of these, if you sort of regularly watch the channel, you know I'm really positive on quite a few of these, and I want a lot of these, but the thing without the Marvel or DC books, they're pretty tough to track down in the 9.8. So yeah, just you know, ones to absolutely want and keep an eye out for moving forward for sure in a 9.8. All right, thanks team for watching. As always, I'll see you on the next one. If you're liking my content, please subscribe and hit that bell, and I'll keep you updated on future videos.